Alrighty then. Are you ready for a podcast?
Oh, yes, I am.
Alrighty, let's do this. Hello and welcome to Learning the Law podcast about all things legal with a focus on current events where we try to teach you things in an hour. My name is Ashley, aka Phoenix Nymphy, and my co-host, who is the man of the hour and the educator here on Learning the Law, my husband Ron. His podcast
Hi.
is purely educational and should not be taken as legal advice. This podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. This podcast is based on his interpretation of relevant law, and any opinions expressed are the opinions of the individual making them and do not reflect the opinions of any firm, company, or other individuals. Ron is a licensed practicing attorney in the state of California.
Yes, I am, and have been since 1999.
We are now officially on Patreon. Please consider supporting the podcast over there at patreon.com/learningthelaw. We have our first video up. It is up and available where our first companion video is up about A Time to Kill, where we watch A Time to Kill and talk about it during the thing. So if you've seen the movie and you want our opinions on it, yeah. So we'll be doing our next one. Ooh, we should probably do that this weekend, actually.
That would have to be Saturday.
Yeah, we better do it this weekend. If you would like to sponsor the podcast, please email us at twolazydogsmedia@gmail.com. And for more content from us, please check out Sunday evenings on TikTok, where we go live to discuss other things that happen in the week. And the TikTok is tiktok.com// and then it's at Phoenix Nymphy. So, however, this Sunday we will not be going live because we'll be at Disney World or Disneyland celebrating Valentine's Day. So that's our plans.
Yeah.
I had a lot happen this week. Just business work wise. I am in the process of, we are actually sponsoring a charity stream. I gotta look at the details. I will bring the detail. I'll post more details on the Twitter, but we are actually sponsoring a really awesome charity stream that is it Feed? Crap. You know what? I'm just gonna look it up right now because I believe it's No Kid Hungry is what it's gonna be for. But Real Women of Gaming, which is a community I am a part of, we got an email. Oh, it's Player versus Hunger. That's what it is. Okay. And they are doing what they call Be Someone's Superhero over on the Real Women of Gaming Twitch channel. We're going to be sponsoring it, which means we're basically donating money. They promote the podcast a little bit, but it's for a good cause. It's to help raise money to feed children. And so they'll be doing a 12-hour live gaming stream over there. So yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be cool. I'll probably be over there and playing a couple of games as well. So if y'all would like to support that, check that out on February 26th at twitch.tv/Real Women of Gaming, all one word. Yeah. You ready to get into the podcast?
Yeah.
So the topic of today is war crimes. But before we get into that, we do want to give an update on the orange potato, the Cheeto. Boxes of records. I'm sure so many of you have heard about this weekend. It came out that a shit ton of records found at Mar-a-Lago contained documents from
Kim Jong-un, Barack
Yeah, Kim
Obama.
Jong Un, Barack Obama, like all kinds of documents that should have gone to the National Archives, but they were at Mar-a-Lago. And these are like physical papers, like physical boxes of papers.
Yeah.
So that's highly
And
illegal, like way
you
more
will
so than the emails that Hillary had.
yet yet those people complaining about Hillary's email are silent about all these records at Mar-a-Lago, even though
Yeah.
it specifically violates the law that they put into place after Watergate. So every note, every document, every social media post has to go to the National Archives. So
Mm-hmm.
not only did it not go to the National Archives, there have been reports that Donald Trump just ripped up documents throughout his
Yeah, he
presidency.
shredded a bunch of documents allegedly. Like this
Some of
is,
his staff had to rescue them and tape them together,
yeah,
and some of them arrived at the archives in shreds, and the archives had to tape them together.
this is not good. This is something that uh a businessman who's trying not to go to jail for embezzling is
Or get
doing.
sued. Yep.
Yeah, like that's what it sounds like to me. I really hope he goes to jail for
And
this.
the, and that's why in a civil case, when you're suing a corporation, you send them a statement to preserve all records. Be-
Oh,
Yeah, before a corporation gets sued, a lot of times they will try and destroy some records before
yeah.
things get out.
Yeah, I don't think he realizes that when you are the president of the United States, literally everything you do goes into the archives. Every time you
Yeah,
take a shit, every time you tweet it on the pooper, it goes into the National Archives. Um, you're not,
that's
you don't have a private life when you are the president of the United States. You
no.
can't hide, you literally can't hide anything. And and I also saw something that the RNC is now claiming that the January 6th insurrection was a legitimate political protest discourse thing.
Yeah.
And all I can say is bullcrap.
All I can say is, I guess it's normal political discourse to plan a pipe bomb outside a national committee's headquarters, as was done to the DNC. So therefore, the RNC should not have a problem if some people in the future plant pipe bombs at their headquarters, because it's just normal. It's normal, legitimate political discourse.
Yeah. So
I'm just taking them at their word.
I I need people. I just, and I know the type of people that listen to this podcast probably already lean the way we lean anyway. But if you are a Republican and you do listen to this podcast because you do want to learn, please, please, please stop and think about the harm that this kind of behavior is causing. We have to stop sticking our head in the
Well,
sand.
I will say, amazingly enough, Mitch McConnell just uh, chastised the RNC for the things they have said and the things they have done recently.
Wow. Mitch
Yeah,
Turtle McConnell chastised the RNC.
yeah,
Dang. They must have.
because that RNC resolution that censored Cheney and Kissinger
Yeah.
is could possibly come back to bite them in the ass in the midterm elections.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it could.
Really? I think a lot
It
more
depends.
people in this country, even Republican, because I mean, even the Republicans in our lives agree that January 6th was an insurrection and was uncalled for and not like it made them
as,
angry.
as McConnell has said too.
Yeah. So the people, but like they can't keep right. The thing is, they can't keep riding the line of supporting Trump and saying that was an insurrection, because
Right.
you that is a situation where you can't do both. You can't support Trump and agree that this is an insurrection and people need to be held accountable, because he's the one who has to be held accountable. And this just mounting evidence of stuff about how corrupt and how he used his presidency, and yet he's still not being held accountable, is a
Well,
problem.
it, how he used his presidency and how corrupt it was and how much money he made is not new. People knew it throughout his entire term, but they didn't care. They made Jimmy Carter sell his peanut farm,
Yeah,
but they let Trump keep his
towers.
supposedly multi-billion-dollar empire,
Yeah, but you
which is
wouldn't let
built
Jimmy
on a house of
Carter
sand,
keep a farm that provided
peanuts.
peanuts for everyone. Like,
Yeah. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
yeah. Um, yeah, that's a problem. Yeah. Anyway, so we are all fully aware after a year of this, our opinions on Donald Trump. So we're going to move on from that. But yes, he should be in jail right now. He needs to be prosecuted.
Plus a bunch of others.
Plus a bunch of others, but yes. The problem is we got to have Democrats who are going to, woman up and actually do it. We need
Yeah.
we need Democratic leaders who are going to actually stand their ground and do what they are supposed to do to represent us. Because the people want Trump to be held accountable.
Well, half the people.
A majority of the people.
A lot of people think he was right.
Mm-hmm. But way more don't. Anyway, so that's, the latest update on that whole situation. We just found that interesting. There's not much, it's just information, not much you can do about it, right? Like, what you can do, as, we've stated time and time again, contact your representatives and put the pressure on them. Because eventually with enough people putting pressure, they will finally concede and do it. But you have to show them that that's what you want.
Right.
It's not going to take one person, it's going to take all of us. That's why petitions and all of that stuff is so important. So, we had a fantastic question from one of our viewers, and that is what today's topic is going to be on. It's going to be on war crimes. So, Roughgalaxy, thank you so much for this question. Can you be charged with a war crime in a setting outside of an official war, such as a protest? And his example was during the Black Lives Matter protest, how the cops and stuff, how there's a lot of evidence of the cops actually starting a lot of the riots, and in the middle, like beating people, like truly causing what many countries, doing the things that many countries, including ours, have been found guilty of to people protesting. But can that be considered a war crime? Well, I think the first thing is we need to learn what a war crime actually is.
Yeah. And in a nutshell, you will basically, a war crime is a violation of the laws of war that give rise to individual responsibility for actions taken by combatants, such as intentionally killing civilians, intentionally killing prisoners of war, torture, wartime sexual violence, conscripting children into the military,
So
ethnic
actions
cleansing, things like that.
actions by the combatants, meaning the
The
people
soldier,
who are fighting.
correct.
Well, I mean, could you not then call police combatants?
In some definitions, you could, but generally, you're not at war with just a protest.
Usually, but yeah. So the short answer is no, but the reason is what we're going to be discussing today.
Right. And exactly what is a war crime and who prosecutes war crimes,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
So, I mean, in the definition of what a war crime is, and you're looking at it from that, yes, there is that argument that it could be considered a war crime, but the problem is the protesters are not the protesters are not in their minds in the middle of a war. There's not a war happening in a protest. So that's why you can't say the soldiers, the police are committing war crimes
Right.
because
They're violating civil rights.
they are absolutely, yes, they are violating civil rights, and that is a federal thing, which the Ahmaud Arbery case right now is not looking good for them.
Well, they've been found guilty.
Yes, they were found guilty, and now they're like, doing the whole federal civil rights stuff, and they just like they're showing exactly how racist those guys are, and it is like, I know it, you know it, but like just seeing it all laid out, it's just like, man, they are really getting everything they deserve. And it's nice. Now, could we do this for everyone that deserves that? You know what I mean? Anyway, um, that's getting off topic. But so basically, in order to be charged with a war crime, it has to be an act of war. You have to be in the middle of a legitimate war, and it has to be called a war.
Yes. And generally speaking, that is true. There has to be armed conflict,
Yes.
two sides.
Yeah.
Um, there doesn't necessarily have to be a declared war
Oh,
because
okay.
no one's really declared a war when it's a revolution, but you can commit war crimes in a revolution.
Ah, yes, yes. Okay.
And funny enough, as I was doing the research, there was the first trial that can be found, with transcripts and everything for a war crime happened back in 1474.
Holy crap. That's the
Yeah,
first
the first
the
war crime where
first this is
trial.
considered the first war crime trial?
Yeah,
The first instance of this? Wow,
yeah.
that's what Middle Ages, right?
It is Middle Ages, back when
S-
there was the Holy Roman Empire.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
And so
Uh
you have this knight, Peter von Hagenbach, and he was found guilty for not preventing criminal behavior by his soldiers.
they were holding the the dude in charge accountable.
Well, he was actually middle management.
Oh, oh, okay, okay, okay,
The
okay.
the knights had some, they were considered nobles,
Right,
but
right.
he said he was acting on the superior orders of the nobles above him,
Okay.
and the tribunal did not care. He was convicted, condemned to death, and beheaded.
Wow. Okay. So not wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 1474.
Yes. That is before Columbus sailed for the New World.
Yeah. That was, yeah, well, that was before America became what it is today.
Yeah.
Like that was before America got colonized. That's wild.
So it was by no means common back
Yeah.
then. It's by no means a common trial now.
Yeah, it's war crimes is something that's really difficult because the question is, especially at this stage, who convicts you and how do you deal with the consequences?
Right. And there are things in place now for that.
Which that's, I mean, I would imagine that is something that the UN would deal with now.
Right. The International Criminal Court in The Hague.
And did we not just get convicted of war crimes recently? Were we not
We,
found? No, we were found in violation of human rights,
oh, yeah.
but not the war crimes. Yes, because of the genocide. And, but how do you, what's the consequences of that? Like
Um,
we've been found guilty, but there's no consequences to it.
that's because we war crimes are prosecuted by the victors.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I mean,
if you
Germany had to pay reparations and all of their stuff. So,
and a lot of the higher tier Nazis were put into prison.
mhm, mhm.
We'll get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
No,
realize I'm jumping ahead, but like that's essentially what it is. Like when it comes to war crimes, I'm just thinking of all this stuff. Sorry.
right. So ask yourself, there's laws of war. What do you mean by that?
Mm. What are the laws of war? Yeah. Is that like what is also I because it's very different from 1400s to now because like we don't go out and battle in armor and swords anymore.
No, we haven't done that since the 30s. The 1930s, by the way. Ah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, the parts of the Polish cavalry went out to stop the German tanks
I
and
had to think about it for a second, but
their
yeah.
armor and lances. The poor guys. They weren't very successful.
I yeah.
But usually, when you think of international law, it has to come from treaties.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sure, hopefully, that people have heard of things like the Geneva Convention.
Mhm.
Okay, that is one of the basis of the international laws of war. Now, from 1864 to 1949, there were 4 different Geneva Conventions. And this is where they've come up and they said you can't torture prisoners. If they ask for surrender, you have to allow them to surrender.
And it's only called the Geneva Conventions because that's where it was signed and where it was held, correct?
Right, Geneva, Switzerland, which,
Yes.
you know, the Swiss are
Neutral.
neutral when it comes to other wars. I'm sure if they were invaded, they would defend themselves.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, don't they allegedly have one of the strictest military?
Oh, God.
Aren't they the ones who guard the Vatican?
They do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, some people get to take their armored personal carriers home. So everyone who's a member of the militia has their automatic weapon in their house. And if you try to invade Switzerland, you have to go through a bunch of tunnels.
Yeah. It's
You're
honestly,
not invading Switzerland without some major cost to yourself.
I'm not going to lie. The older I get, the more I would not mind living my life in Switzerland. You know, that's where Audrey Hepburn retired and lived. And
Oh, did
then, yeah, the last of her life, she worked for the, she was an ambassador for the for UNICEF. the children's section of the UN.
Now, I will say in 1977, there were some additional protocols applied to the old Geneva Conventions um, to address things in modern warfare.
And I'm assuming that's in response to like Vietnam.
Correct.
And we haven't gotten back together to do anything like that since then, have we?
Since 1977?
Yeah, have we made any adjustments to the Geneva Convention since the 70s?
There's been a few minor tweaks that aren't really notable. The thing about 1977 is not everybody, before 1977, everybody who is a member of the UN signed on to these treaties.
Mm-hmm. Because the
Okay.
UN was created it was
1948.
before World War II?
No, just after.
Just after. Okay. It was created because of the two wars,
Yeah,
of
it
World
was.
War I and World War II.
Yeah,
And
they tried the League of Nations after World War One. It didn't work,
the
and so they
un-
come up with
and it shouldn't be based in America. It should be based in a neutral country like Switzerland, in my opinion.
you would think.
Because we're not a neutral entity.
No, but we still have to allow anybody who's a member of the diplomatic community of those particular countries.
Right. I get that, but I think that it would be safer for all involved and we'd probably get more done and do a better job if the UN was housed in a neutral country.
Yeah, I'm
And
gonna have to look into that because I don't know why it wasn't put in Switzerland.
oh, I know why it wasn't. Because it was
Well,
FDR that put it into place and he didn't want it in another country because we are considered the policemen of the world. So our military are the ones that are used to police everyone. So that's why the UN is housed here. So if we're called guilty, how do we police ourselves if we are the guilty party, though?
we don't
We
police
don't.
ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the UN. That's literally why, like, I remember learning about this in history class in college. And I don't know why, but that's a particular fact that I remember learning about in my,
Interesting.
yeah, it's because, what is his thing? Carry a big stick or whatever.
No. That's Theodore Roosevelt.
I'm sorry, Teddy Roosevelt. Okay.
Speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yes. Well, that thought process is what has, yeah, it's all connected. Yes.
Well,
Like, our politicians wanted control over the UN.
yes, and we do that with money.
That's why it's housed here. Because we were the victors.
Getting back though to the additional protocols that were passed in 77, there are some countries that did not sign on to those. And I'm going to name them off for you. India, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, North Korea, Israel, and the US.
The original Geneva Conventions in
No,
77.
the 1977 are not original.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry.
They're additional.
We didn't sign the additional stuff.
No, because after Vietnam, we would have been guilty of so many different things that there's no way we were going to put soldiers under jurisdiction of international tribunal.
I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure that I remembered which Roosevelt was the one that created the UN, and I was correct. It's FDR.
Yeah. Although he didn't live to see it actually
Yeah.
built.
But yes, I'm you know how I am. I question my intelligence.
Yeah, I know.
So I
But
wanted
you're
to
smart, so
confirm.
you don't need to question
So
your
why did we? So can you repeat to me why we did not sign on? Um,
because basically we did some things in Vietnam that would be considered war crimes now.
yes, we did. Absolutely.
So we are not going to sign on to a treaty that's going to put U.S. soldiers under the jurisdiction of an international tribunal.
We don't want to be held accountable for our actions.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, so then
So,
you can't
yep,
convict us of war crimes if we're not signing the treaty? Or can we still be convicted of those war
you can
crimes?
still be convicted of war crimes on the treaties we have signed.
But what about the have we signed that particular one?
Oh, we've signed all the Geneva Conventions from 49 backwards.
Have we signed the one on 77? Are we still not?
No, no,
We still
nope,
haven't signed that one.
nope. And we're not going to.
Wow. That's not cool. That's not okay.
So, as we get into who actually prosecutes war crimes, currently there's a international court that does that. But before that, you had these treaties, but you had no way of prosecuting them, right?
Yep.
I mean, if you broke the treaty, ask the Indians. Treaties aren't worth the paper they're, the indigenous treaties aren't worth the paper they're written on unless you have some means of enforcing them.
Right.
So, just after World War One, and with the whole League of Nations and everything, they tried to make a war crimes tribunal, and they did successfully prosecute a small number of German military personnel in 1921, but generally failed. So the next thing that comes up is the Nuremberg trials,
Hmm.
right? Which were
That
the
sounds
trials,
familiar.
the trials after World War II.
Okay, the Germany
Correct.
trials. Okay.
And the head of the Nuremberg trials was actually our own Supreme Court justice. You know, if it happened today, that would be John Roberts.
Ooh.
Yeah. But the Chief Justice was also the head of the trials there. But along with the tribunal, there's also a charter that defined not just the war crimes, but crimes against peace and crimes against humanity, because those are most often committed during wars and in concert with war crimes. And so you had a lot of soldiers, and you had a lot of middle management in the hierarchy, and you had a lot of the top brass put to trial for things that they did, not just Holocaust related, although
Yeah.
that was primarily um, the trials, but for things that were done in the war itself. Um, there were soldiers that were massacred by the Germans. There were soldiers that were massacred by the Russians, but they weren't prosecuted.
Because the Russians were allies at that time, were they not?
Correct.
So they were the winners.
Hamburg was firebombed. 80,000 civilians died.
Well, I mean, we weren't held accountable for
Right.
dropping the
That
bombs, which killed, which is
part of the war crimes now is uh, targeting and killing civilians intentionally.
yeah, that's what that was. Dropping,
Dropping
yeah,
the 2A bombs.
Yeah.
We firebombed Tokyo too,
I mean,
knowing that those houses were paper and wood
and very close together.
and would just kill indiscriminately, but we did it anyway.
Um, well, we've done that um with Sherman did that. That's that's unfortunately that's actually how you win wars
Yeah,
is
the march
targeting civilians. Like
if the march yeah.
as horrible as it is, like you can't just fight soldiers when you're fighting a war, and that's why war is not good. You're not fighting the defense. If you want to win, you can't fight just the defense. You have to fight the people who aren't even fighting if you want to win. That's why white supremacists are winning right now, because we're not fighting them. We're not going to sit there and shoot back right now, because that's not what we do. But it's going to inevitably happen. We're going to have to fight back. But that's
Yeah.
how you win. You fight people who are weak and who cannot defend themselves. You don't fight the defense. You fight the ones that can't defend themselves.
Yeah, so if the march to the sea that Sherman did in the Civil War happened now, that would be a war crime.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it back then, it was a war crime then, but they didn't have what
And then
they didn't have the whole war crime system.
if you look at the entire what is called the Indian Wars of the late 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that is basically a genocide,
Yes.
which is also a war crime. You know, when I forget who said it. I think it was some general or politician. The only good Indian is a dead Indian.
Wasn't it Sherman that said that?
It might have been Sherman. I mean, it was his entire strategy to get rid of the buffalo. I mean, hunters did a lot of it, but the soldiers did the rest. Take away their way of sustaining their life and their culture and putting them on a reservation. But I digress. Um, and everybody knows about, well, not everybody, but about the Nuremberg trials. There was also the Tokyo trials for things that happened in the Pacific Theater
Wow.
against the Japanese hierarchy. And most recently, I believe it was President Slobodan Milosevic. I'm butchering that name. He was tried on war crimes in the former Soviet Union or Yugoslavia for the Civil War in the 90s.
I vaguely remember Yugoslavia. Okay. Which is
Yeah.
now what? Russia?
I think it's Slovenia. No, that's Czechoslovakia. It's Kosovo and in fact, I don't want to get this wrong.
I'm
So
looking it up right now.
yeah.
Um South Slavic people. What country is
It looks like Serbia, Croatia.
Serbia? Okay.
And I believe also Bosnia Herzegovina. Those are the 3 countries that came out.
Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro?
Montenegro?
Montenegro? Yeah.
Oh, all of those.
Okay, it
Wow.
seems like it's
Okay.
all of those. Yeah. Wow. Oh, wow, that's a lot of countries to that was a big area though. Wow. I did not realize. Okay. So that's a result of war crimes, I guess.
Well, yeah, there's a huge civil war in Yugoslavia,
Yeah.
and it fell not along geographic lines so much as it was religious and ethnic lines.
That explains why the countries look so weird the way it's set up now.
Yeah.
Why the lines are the way they are. Interesting.
And so
Interesting.
the president of, I believe, what became, his name was Milosevic. He was convicted of war crimes.
Did he go to jail? I guess.
Yeah, I think he died in jail.
Wow.
Um, yeah, he died in his cell 2006.
Oh, wow. Not that long ago.
Yeah, found dead in his prison cell.
So currently, so if we were to go, so now I have a question. The last time we declared war was World War II. Like Congress
Correct.
never declared Vietnam a war
Nope.
or Iraq or Afghanistan or any of those wars
Or Korea.
or Korea. So the things that we've done in those countries, can they be considered war crimes? Or are they considered just crimes against humanity?
They can be considered war crimes because
Because I mean,
even
there's
without that
two.
formal declaration, you have two sides in an armed conflict.
Okay. So war crimes aren't just a declaration of war, it's also a conflict. So
Yes.
so those I feel like oh my god. Okay. So
But
those like wasn't there a drone strike a couple of times that took out like civilians like cities and civilians and stuff like that?
the drone strikes usually take out a target, a person they want to kill, and all the civilians around that person.
Right. I mean, could that not be considered a war crime?
Yes.
But since we didn't sign the thing in 1977, are we will we get convicted or can we still be convicted under that law even though we didn't sign it under
The
that
court
international law?
the court can try the people in absentia, but we are never going to send the soldiers there to be tried, or the commanders, or the president.
Oh, I see. So they can try us and find us guilty, but well, what do we do if they find us guilty? Like see that's where the breakdown is.
But if they
There's
find us
no
guilty, we
consequence.
just say, "Oh, okay."
There's no real consequence. That's where the breakdown is. There's no actual accountability and consequence when it comes to war crimes in certain situations.
Not unless you got a powerful entity
Well,
that is willing to prosecute the war crimes and enforce it.
and unfortunately, like we don't, that's what we do. That's our job in this thing. So if we're the ones that are being guilty of it, which we are, that's why people don't like our country because we're the big bad that goes out and polices the war criminals. That's what the UN uses us for because nobody else has a military like ours.
Yeah. Like, well,
Well,
Russia.
used to, I should say, used to. I mean, America is not the country that people think it is. It's not a great country. I mean, it hasn't been for 30 something years. Like it hasn't been this great like it's never been a great country. And the more we stick our head in the sand and don't teach like this kind of stuff to our kids, uh the more downhill this country's going to go, and we're going to become another Russia, because that's what Russia has done. They don't teach you what you're supposed to know. They hide everything, and like if it goes against anything that what's his ass says, it's not true. So like we're going to turn into Russia if we're not careful. And we will definitely become a dictatorship held in charge by the GOP. It'll be a weird dictatorship, but it'll be a dictatorship nonetheless.
Well, Russia's dictators, you know, it always came from the party.
This is true.
Stalin, Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Gorbachev.
And now Putin. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a valid point. So, like, yeah, like it. So, and they've never been convicted of their war crimes because they were part of the allyship.
Correct.
And now we're in this, they're trying to, like, can we talk about the situation that is happening right now between the Ukraine and Russia?
We can in a little bit. I want to get through the International Criminal Court,
Okay.
and then we can get to
Because I
where
feel like that's
we
kind
are.
of relevant, because I have a question about that.
Okay. So,
Let me write it down before I forget.
okay. I'll give you time to do that.
Go ahead.
Okay. 2002, the UN founds the International Criminal Court, located in The Hague, being for the prosecution of war crimes committed on or after that date. Several nations, US, China, Russia, Israel, have criticized the court. We only participate as an observer, and that court has jurisdiction over the citizens of non participating states if they are accused of committing crimes in the territory of one of the participating states.
So basically, if we commit a crime in a country that has signed that declaration, we're held accountable under that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they don't enforce it. So,
Right.
war crimes are defined in this statute that established the International Criminal Court as one, willful killing or causing great suffering or injury to body or health. Basically, murder. You just can't go out and murder, even in the middle of a war. Two,
Oh, yeah. I mean, like how many movies do we see where they get into a bar fight and murder somebody? You know, like I mean, they have those moments like in those war movies where like they have a bar fight and accidentally kill the guy, or you know, like accidents happen, things happen, and murdering someone outside of your actual war
right.
fighting, yeah, is
Or,
what they're
you know,
talking about.
you detain a couple of people on the street because you want some kind of information to help you win the war. They're just two civilians. They're not soldiers.
And you
So
end
you
up,
put a gun to one's head and you ask him a question. And he doesn't give you the answer and you shoot him dead. Then you put your gun next to another guy. Maybe he's scared enough to give you the information you need. Or maybe he doesn't know. You don't know.
yeah.
Okay. Two, torture. Uh, three is unlawful, wanton destruction of property or the stealing of property,
We've
i.e.,
absolutely done the torture thing, by the way. America.
every country has.
Yeah. Every country does the torture thing.
Um, stealing all that art when the Nazis did that.
Oh,
That
yes.
that's a war crime.
Um, yeah. Yeah, you're not supposed to steal, even though we have stuff from World War II
Right.
that our grandpa took.
And you can't just blow up buildings to blow up buildings.
Which is something that Sherman did, which again is another
Oh yeah.
tactic to win your war. I mean, if you really truly want to win a war, you have to decimate everything.
It's called the scorched earth policy, and it's a viable military strategy.
But with these international laws, you kind of have to steer away from the scorched earth policy, which is what they're
Yes.
trying to stop.
Yeah.
It,
Except us. We don't.
well, yeah.
Okay. You can't force a prisoner of war to serve in your own army, which I don't know why that's in there, but since it's in there, it's happened somewhere along the lines. I wouldn't want to put a prisoner of war into my army.
No.
It doesn't make sense to me, but
Even if they've turned, I still wouldn't trust them
yeah.
because they've turned at least once.
You can't deprive a prisoner of war of a fair trial. You can't take hostages. Um, you
All of
can't
these things are things that we actively do. We actively
unlawfully
currently do right now.
deport or transfer people, i.e., taking them from their homes on trains to concentration camps.
Mm.
You can't direct attacks against civilians. You can't direct attacks specifically against humanitarian workers like the Red Cross or the Red Crescent or UN peacekeepers. Yeah, attacking UN peacekeepers is a war crime in and of itself.
Yeah.
Okay, you cannot kill a surrendered combatant, and in the you'll see a lot of war movies that say we can't give them any quarter, which means kill them all. Or you'll hear him say, "We can't afford to take prisoners. We're on the move."
Oh, yeah.
You know, that is a war crime. You can't misuse a flag of truce. So if you do the white flag in order to lure somebody in so you could massacre them, war crime.
Also a very low blow, man. That's
Yeah.
messed up.
Settlement of occupied territory. Now, specifically, this seems to correspond to the Gaza Strip and some of the occupied territory that Israel got in the 67 war when they were attacked.
Uh, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. If you occupy a territory, for example, Germany conquered Europe, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They did not put in any German cities. They did not make any German settlements.
Okay.
But here, um, in the 67 war, when they got invaded, they took the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, which is where the invasion came from.
Uh-huh.
So the Israeli army is occupying those territories, not planning on giving them back. And they have since made Israeli settlements in what
Oh,
was considered Palestinian land before that invasion.
I hadn't. Okay. That just explains so much more about the Israeli situation. Okay. Okay. So, and Now, that's not how Israel came about. Israel was
No,
given that country because of
the Holocaust.
because of the Holocaust, as a result of the
Right.
Holocaust. But Israel decided to go into the Palestinian section and occupy it and then settle it.
Well, in 1948, when they were given the land, there was a big conflict because no one wanted them there.
Right.
Okay, they won that conflict. They took the land. The UN did
Yeah.
everything. But in '67, a group of Arab nations got together and thought that they could, you know, get rid of Israel.
Okay.
I think it was Jordan, Syria, the Palestinians. It might have also been Lebanon. Not sure about that, but I think it was called the 6 Day War.
Okay.
In 6 days, they were pushed back and lost that war and lost a whole bunch of territory.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That makes sense to me now why people live there, because I wouldn't want to live in occupied territory, but like they did it on purpose to try to keep that territory.
Yeah,
Like that's
because
interesting.
it's the territory that they kept is very strategic. It's a buffer zone for them.
Hmm.
You know, you're not launching another invasion of Israel from there.
I know we're supposed to be Israel's ally, but I don't agree with how they're treating Palestine. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Just I think that whole situation is just messed up on all sides. Like there's no good answer to fixing what's wrong there. And I feel like I would rather focus on our country
Yeah,
if I'm going to live here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I get that we're their allies, but it's like just let them deal with it themselves. Let's not help and step in. Let's focus on our crap and our own shit.
yeah. So you can't use poison. No poison weapons,
That's okay,
and
so
that's a direct
what? So
that's a direct uh, consequence of all the gas attacks in World War I.
yeah,
But as you can see,
we don't follow that.
a lot of people don't follow that. That's why we still have gas masks.
Mhm.
In fact, I believe it was Syria that was accused of gassing their own civilians.
Wow.
Eh,
Okay.
You
We're
can't use it.
we need
You can't use
to can we get
what?
through this a little bit faster? We're
Yeah,
getting towards the end. We're like overtime.
yeah. We can get through this faster. Can't use civilians as shields. Can't use child soldiers. Can't fire on a combat medic as long as they, have a insignia that shows that they're a medic.
Which is like the big red cross.
Yeah, or the big red crescent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is basically what your war crimes are. And the International Court is who prosecutes them now. But if you're a winner, you don't get prosecuted.
Right. There's so much here. I don't think we're not gonna get through the rest of this stuff. I don't know that we need to, do we?
No, we don't. It was just certain examples of things,
Okay.
you know.
I see
You,
so much more. There's like two more pages, and I'm just like, I don't
yeah.
think we're gonna
Here,
have time to get through this.
here's one more example. You can't mutilate the dead for souvenirs.
Which is something that happened
In
in
World War II.
Japan.
Oh, Franklin
Oh. Ooh,
FDR himself was reportedly given a gift of a letter opener made of a Japanese soldier's arm.
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They did. I'm kind of recalling that they, yeah, it was not good. The treatment of the Japanese in World War II was horrendous.
Yeah. Or in Vietnam, there was the My Lai massacre where we killed about 500 unarmed citizens.
Um, in Vietnam,
Yep.
yeah, I remember doing a report on that. Um, yeah, they just went in and completely desecrated an entire town, an entire village,
Yeah.
and not a single, and none of the heads of the platoon were convicted. The
Nope.
soldiers were, but the heads were not. I
I know.
remember that. I
And
remember learning about that because I did a
there-
report on that.
there's examples of uh, Iraqi civilians being killed, Afghani civilians being killed,
Yeah.
unarmed.
So the short answer to outside of it, it doesn't have to be an official war. It has to be a war like setting. It has to be a
Yeah.
conflict where you have two or more armed combatants. So it can't be, so a protest, you know, there's one side is armed, but the other side, I'm sure just because some people might have guns doesn't mean the protesters are armed combatants, because
Correct.
they're not there to fight the police. They're there to stand in solidarity for whatever thing. And I mean, and a lot of BLM and stuff, especially a lot of stuff when it comes to people of color are protesting the cops, but that's still not a
Right.
combatant setting. You know what I mean? And
Right. And if, say something like during a protest, the cops kill somebody,
yeah,
you know, unarmed, whatever, that's not a war crime either.
no, but it is a crime against humanity. They could be charged with, like, I think that America could absolutely be charged and convicted of crimes against humanity based solely off of our police force. Solely off of the use of our police force. Um, but they cannot be charged with war crimes because it's not a war. It's not a war
Right.
setting, even though it might feel like it sometimes.
And
Um,
generally, the international court is not going to prosecute that case if it looks like the case is being prosecuted by the civil
domestically,
authorities. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but that was a great question and really led us down some fascinating knowledge. Like we have so much in the notes. I'm gonna have to cut out the notes for tomorrow, but yeah, thank you so much for that question. It was a great question, Ruff. We appreciate it. um we love to have your questions. We've got a few others uh that some people have brought up. So thank you again for all of this. This is good discussion today. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Learning the Law. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up now because we are over an hour, and I like to try to keep it to an hour. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share in all your favorite places. You can find it hosted live on YouTube. This is not my original closing. I need to adjust that. Um, Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at learningthelaw. You can find Ron at Necrokijo. That's NECROKIJO, and me at Phoenix Nymphy. We also have a Patreon. Don't forget to sub to us or whatever they call it over there on Patreon. $1 will get you access to our Patreon content. So every little bit helps the podcast. If you have any questions, please tweet us, comment, or email us at twolazydogsmedia@gmail.com. This has been a Two Lazy Dogs Productions.
Bye, everyone.